ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਲੈਂਗਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਹੈ ਐਡੈਸਟਰਾ ਹੋਲਡਿੰਗਸ। ਲੈਂਗਲੀ ਦੀ ਕੈਨੇਬਿਸ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਭੰਗ ਵੇਚਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅਪਰੂਵਲ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਕੋਕੇਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਕੋਕਾ ਲੀਵਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੈਨੂਫੈਕਚਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ CEO ਨੇ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ 17 ਫਰਵਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਫੈਬਰਰੀ 17 ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਅਪਰੂਵਲ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਤੋਂ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ 3 ਮਾਰਚ ਹੈ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ। ਔਰ 17 ਫਰਵਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਤੋਂ ਅਪਰੂਵਲ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਦੇ CEO ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈ ਮਾਈਕਲ ਫੋਬਸ, ਐਡੈਸਟਰਾ ਦਾ CEO, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ 22 ਫਰਵਰੀ ਨੂੰ 22 ਫੈਬਰਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਜਾਰੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੈ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕੋਕੇਨ ਦੀ ਕਮਰਸ਼ਲਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵਪਾਰਕ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਵਪਾਰੀਕਰਨ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਕੁਝ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰਸਤੇ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਕੋਕੇਨ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਸੇਫ ਸਪਲਾਈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਡਰੱਗ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ। ਹੁਣ ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਮਾਮਲਾ ਖੜਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਜਿਹੜੇ BC ਲਿਬਰਲ ਲੀਡਰ ਨੇ ਕੈਵਿਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਸਵਾਲ ਚੁੱਕ ਦਿੱਤੇ। ਕੈਵਿਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਸੁਣਾਉਣਾ। ਕੈਵਿਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ,
companies are rushing to get involved in the manufacture of heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and I just asked the question, what in the hell is going on?
ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਕਹੀ ਸੀ ਕੈਵਿਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ ਹੋਣਾ ਨੇ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇੱਕ ਇੰਟਰੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਈ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ BC ਲਿਬਰਲ ਲੀਡਰ ਕੈਵਿਨ ਫਾਲਕਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਸੀ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੀਰੀਅਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਵਾਟ ਔਨ ਅਰਥ ਇਜ਼ ਗੋਇੰਗ ਔਨ ਹੇਅਰ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ EB ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਲੈਜਿਸਲੇਚਰ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਹੈਲਥ ਐਂਡ ਐਡਿਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਦੀ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸੀ। ਉੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਰਿਪੋਰਟਰ ਨੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛ ਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਭਾਈ ਦੱਸੋ ਆ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਹੈ ਕੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪੱਲਾ ਝਾੜਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ। ਹੈਲਥ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਲਾਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸੁਣਾਉਣਾ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਨੇ, ਐਲਨੋਰ ਸਟਰਕੋ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਪਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਡੇਵਿਡ EB ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ।
We all know someone who has struggled with issues around mental health and addiction. Coincident?
ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਿਲੇ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਵੀ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਔਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਵੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਨੂੰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ।
It is not part of our provincial plan. If Health Canada did in fact do this, they did it not only without engaging with the province, but without notice to us. So we will get answers for British Columbians about this.
ਸੋ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਨੋਟਿਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਵਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਵਾਂਗੇ। ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਹੈਲਥ ਐਡਿਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਰਿਕਵਰੀ ਔਰ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੈਡੋ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਸਾਊਥ ਸਰੀ ਤੋਂ MLA ਆਨਰੇਬਲ ਐਲਨੋਰ ਸਟਰਕੋ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਨੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਗੁੱਡ ਮਾਰਨਿੰਗ MLA ਸਟਰਕੋ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਫॉर joining us.
Good morning, Samir. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
I just played 2 clips. One was of your leader, Kevin Falcon, and another one was our premier, David EB. And you know the matter, the Langley company's approval to make and sell cocaine. BC Premier is saying he's astonished. What is your reaction?
Well, there's 2 scenarios for me, Samir. Either they did know, which I find concerning, and if they didn't know, I find this also concerning because we're only 2 weeks into decriminalization, and clearly the leader of this province and the NDP have no idea what's going on. And, you know, when we're talking about trafficking cocaine in our province, something that is actually a harmful substance, regardless of whether it's manufactured in someone's company or not, it can still cause harm, can cause psychosis. It's very alarming. So I'm really grateful to our leader, Kevin Falcon, for bringing this matter forward so that the NDP would be aware of it and can ask those questions.
But you know, the company is claiming that they are exploring the commercialization of cocaine to provide a safe supply of the drug. This drug is decriminalized at an extent, but it's not legalized. So once the green signal has been given by the Health Canada, do you think it is a kind of a legalization of cocaine manufacturing and selling in the province?
Well, one of the things I did, Samir, was as soon as I saw the press release from Ad Astra, I actually called an addiction specialist that I know, someone with a long history, Dr. Malamed, Jenny Malamed, who is one of our leading addictions treatment doctors in the province. And I asked her, I said, is there ever a scenario where you would be prescribing someone cocaine? If I came into your office and I said, I'm addicted to cocaine, would you give me cocaine? And she said, no. And I want to be clear, like I'm not ignorant. Cocaine can be used in some medical treatments. For example, if a person has a nosebleed that won't stop, they can use a kind of paste made from cocaine to stop the bleeding. It shrinks capillaries. But in terms of using it as and it also can be used in anesthesia. But in terms of using cocaine to treat addictions and giving people who are addicted to cocaine more cocaine, that is not a practice that would be done here by addiction specialists. So, it's just really confounding to me. I think that, it's incredibly concerning. There are supposed to be protections in place, but, I think that the fact that the provincial government, who is overseeing this decriminalization pilot, ought to have a good handle on what's going on. And this is just clearly evidence to me that they really don't know what the hell's going on.
So if they are not even sure whether this, the green light has been given for the medical purpose, or the company is claiming they are exploring the commercial purpose of, selling or manufacturing this drug here, how do you see, what side effects do you see in this?
Well, we already have seen the emboldening, I think, a continued emboldening of people who are pushing illicit drugs in British Columbia. For example, Mr. Dana Larson is a person who has been openly selling illicit drugs in the city of Vancouver. He has opened up a business that sells LSD. It sells coca leaves, which they're what actually makes cocaine. It's illegal to possess, and it is illegal to import coca leaves into Canada. He sells psilocybin, which is still an illicit drug and illegal not only to possess, but to cultivate and to traffic. And this is happening in storefronts. Mr. Larson has also said that he's committed to building a brick and mortar business in BC that would sell things like methamphetamine. I think it's extremely alarming, and, it really does indicate an emboldening. And we know that without proper law enforcement action, that these things will continue to happen, and it sends the wrong message to British Columbians. We need to make sure that especially we're sending the message to our young people, not just children, youth, but also emerging adults and young adults, that these are actually harmful substances. There is actually no safe supply. All publicly supplied addictive drugs can cause harm. Even legal drugs like Tylenol can cause harm when they're not used properly. And the bottom line is that we have a responsibility, I should say. We have an absolute responsibility to ensure that we are protecting the public, the residents of British Columbia, and especially vulnerable people at all times. And so we have a duty to make sure that we're upholding the law, and right now that's not being done in BC.
But if the government of BC was not involved, or our premier is saying that they haven't been noticed by given any kind of notice by the feds, do you see it as an interference of the federal government in the provincial affairs, or maybe doing it at their own?
Well, what I would have hoped was that, knowing that we're doing this decriminalization pilot, that the groundwork would have been done between the provincial government and the federal government to ensure that any kind of decision making of licensing or any kind of approvals that would be granted by our federal government should at least be done with consultation of this province, knowing that, knowing that we are in a first of its kind in our country pilot, that we have the highest rates of drug-related deaths in the country, that I would have thought that between the federal government and this provincial government, that they would have set proper guidelines and framework to ensure that this kind of mishap would never happen. Because both of those governments, I would say, had an obligation to make sure that there was no gap in those types of consultations, and that anything related to this one-of-a-kind pilot would have been sorted out long before now.
But let me rephrase my question once again. Do you find that there is a lack of coordination between two governments on this very serious issue, and especially when a model has been introduced in the country, and especially British Columbia is captain in taking that lead?
Yes, I would say yes, absolutely, Samir, because this is just evidence of that to me. The fact that we could have such a significant licensing approval in our province with a company that within its press release is citing the reason for this type of application has everything to do with decriminalization and harm reduction strategies by this province. I think that the fact that there was no consultation, allegedly, this is what our premier is telling us, that it is a lack of coordination. It is a poor planning, I would say, on both governments' parts, the provincial and federal government. But the other part of the equation here is that before the province decided to go ahead with decriminalization, there was caveats. There were rules that were put in place by the federal government that were supposed to have been followed before the start of decriminalization. And some of those included public consultation, lots of education for the public, awareness campaigns, and access to treatment on demand, right? So when people need treatment or medical services, that they should have had that. Mm-hmm. And I think you can look around and ask yourself, did you see a rigorous education campaign about decriminalization? Do you really know what it's about? No, because it wasn't done. So just like in this case where we see things falling through the cracks in terms of this licensing, there are so many things that have fallen through the cracks with decriminalization. And we see repeatedly now in the House, in the legislature, that this government's constantly trying to drag all the parties, because we were all together in the Select Standing Committee, and saying, well, you all agreed with decriminalization. And of course we did, because the principle of it was that there were supposed to be rules that are followed for the protection of British Columbians. And so, yes, we agreed to decriminalization as long as rules were followed. And now that we see that this government has completely gone off the rails and is not doing what it should under its obligations, we have questions, and we're going to continue to push for them to do the right thing.
Are you just going to question the provincial government, or you and your leader, as you are a shadow minister for the mental health and addictions, are you or your party going to take this matter to the feds as well, that how they give this green light to the company, and what is the reason behind that?
Well, I will be meeting with Kevin Falcon, and I'll be talking with the leadership of our party to see what our next steps are. Mm-hmm. I am anxiously awaiting, like all British Columbians, to see what the NDP government and David Eby's next steps are. You know, this is their mess that they have created. I need to give them an opportunity to see if they can straighten it out. But we will continue to ask questions. We will continue to look and make sure that British Columbians are protected. You know, we brought this forward in question period, and I can tell you it appeared to be quite a surprise to our government that this news release had even gone out, despite the fact that it had almost been out for a week or maybe even more before we even brought it forward in question period. So what else doesn't the NDP know about what's happening in British Columbia? And you bet we're going to have our eyes laser focused on things that we can find and hopefully make sure can be brought to the attention of British Columbians.
I'm very much sure that the BC government is going to be very serious in this matter as well, and they're going to approach to the feds to know some answers, as our Premier already said. But do you want to give any kind of suggestion or any thing to our Premier regarding this case? What are your expectations? How should they approach to the federal government or to the competent authority in this case?
Well, there's two things, Samir. One of them is that I want them to be extremely clear with the people of British Columbia. What is their intent? Do they have an intention of commercializing and distributing and trafficking illicit drugs in British Columbia? They need to come clean, because if this in any part is at the urging or encouragement of the NDP government, then they need to come clean on that, if this is part of their plan. And then secondfold, they really need to set guidelines with the federal government that when it comes to the manufacturing, distribution, or commercialization of any type of illicit substances in British Columbia, that this government, that this province, that the people of British Columbia deserve to be consulted with.
Thank you so much, MLA Sturko, for your time. Really appreciate, and you have all the very best. And have a nice day.
Yes, you too. Always a pleasure, Samir. Till next time.
Thank you.